My fiancé said, "Don't touch that bag. It's just work stuff." I waited until she left and opened it. What fell out onto the floor? When you're engaged to someone, you like to believe you know their every side. Their quirks, their secrets, their fears, the things they hide even from the rest of the world. At least that's what I thought when I proposed to Serena. I believed she was exactly who she claimed to be, a hard-working woman building her career, someone with nothing but love and loyalty for me. But I was wrong. It all started with the bag. Serena carried this dark leather bag everywhere. It wasn't even stylish, just bulky and plain, like something you'd pick up at a secondhand store. But she treated it like it was made of gold. If she left the room, the bag went with her. If she showered, the bag was locked inside the bathroom. When I once jokingly offered to carry it for her, she snapped, not in a playful way but sharp enough that it made the air tense. "Don't touch that bag. It's just work stuff," she said. I remember laughing it off, but the word stayed with me. Just work stuff. That became her stock answer. If I glanced at the bag, she said it. If I asked why it had to go everywhere, she repeated it. At first, I convinced myself she was probably just carrying documents, maybe sensitive files from her job. She worked in administration at a logistics company, and sometimes they handled contracts. That explanation was enough, until little cracks began to show. One Friday night, she claimed she had to stay late to organize shipment records. She left the bag at home by accident. I didn't even notice at first, but when I did, my curiosity burned through me. I didn't open it then. I told myself snooping wasn't the answer. I sat on the couch, staring at it across the room like it was a ticking bomb. When she came back later that night, she was too quick to notice. The first thing she did wasn't to greet me, it was to check on the bag. She didn't even hide it. She walked straight to where it sat by the coffee table, picked it up, and held it like she was making sure it was still alive. I asked, "Rough night?" She mumbled something vague, avoided eye contact, and went to bed early. That night, I barely slept. Over the next week, my focus shifted entirely to the bag. I watched how she guarded it like her life depended on it. She'd sling it over her shoulder just to take out the trash. If we went to dinner, the bag sat next to her, never hung on a chair, never out of sight. She never let waiters touch it when they offered to move it aside. The final straw came on a Sunday morning. Serena said she was heading to a team breakfast before work. It didn't make sense. Who schedules team breakfasts on a Sunday? She rushed through getting ready, almost jittery, and left the bag on the table. She had her phone in her hand, her coat half-buttoned, and in her hurry, she forgot it. I stood in the kitchen alone, staring at it. My chest tightened with guilt and adrenaline. This was it. I had no excuse to keep looking away. My fiancé's whole life suddenly felt like a question mark, and the bag held the answers. I told myself I'd only peek. Just one look, quick enough to put my mind at ease. I carried it carefully to the counter, unbuckled the top, and pulled the zipper. What fell out wasn't work stuff. The first thing that tumbled onto the floor was an envelope thick with cash, bundles of it, all in large bills, rubber-banded. I froze, staring at the stack lying by my feet. My pulse slammed in my ears. This wasn't a paycheck, this wasn't someone's emergency fund. It was too much, too organized, too secret. I reached deeper. Another envelope slid out. Same thing. Cash, neatly bundled. My fingers shook as I sifted through them. There had to be at least $10,000 in that bag, maybe more. Then came the second phone. Black, cheap, not her regular smartphone. I pressed the power button. It lit up instantly. No lock screen, no code. Notifications flooded in. Dozens of messages from unknown numbers. Tonight, same place. Call me when free. Need you again, same arrangement. My mouth went dry. Same arrangement. I scrolled further. One number stood out, saved under a name, Demir. Messages filled the thread. Some short, some too explicit to misinterpret. The most recent one from last night read, "The apartment is ready. Don't keep me waiting." I felt a hollowness open in my chest. I wasn't looking at work secrets. I was looking at a double life. Then, at the bottom of the bag, I found the worst part. Receipts. Hotel bills under her name, but signed with another last name. At least 5 different receipts from the past 2 months, all at the same upscale hotel in the city. Then a folded document, an apartment rental agreement. The lease listed Serena as the tenant, but the emergency contact wasn't me. It was Demir. My breath caught. She had a whole other home. A secret apartment, rented while she was engaged to me. I stacked the evidence on the counter, my hands trembling. For a second, I considered putting everything back, pretending I never looked. Maybe it would all disappear if I pretended ignorance. But another part of me knew too much now. There was no way to walk back from this. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything. Every envelope of cash. Every receipt. Every message on that second phone. My stomach churned as I did it, but I knew I needed proof. If I confronted her without it, she'd twist it somehow. She always had a way of talking fast, shifting blame, making things sound different than they were. Not this time. I zipped the bag shut, placed everything exactly how it was, and sat back down at the table. My heart hammered as if I'd committed a crime. I kept glancing at the clock, waiting for the sound of the door opening, waiting for her to storm in and notice something out of place. Minutes stretched like hours. When Serena finally came back, she was all smiles, carrying a pastry bag. She kissed me on the cheek, set coffee on the counter, and then, just like always, her eyes darted to the bag. She picked it up casually, but not too casually. Checked the zipper. Adjusted the strap. "Everything okay?" she asked, sipping her coffee like nothing was wrong. I forced a nod. My throat felt raw. She had no idea I knew. That was the moment I understood I wasn't living with the woman I thought I knew. I was living with a stranger who was building her life on lies, stacking them carefully inside a leather bag she thought I'd never open. And now I had the key to all of it. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. That bag changed everything. From the moment I zipped it shut and placed it back where she left it, I wasn't her fiancé anymore. I was an intruder living in her house, watching her every move with suspicion. The strangest part was how normal she acted. Serena still kissed me on the cheek when she left for work, still laughed at shows we watched, still talked about wedding invitations. But every gesture felt staged now, like a script she had rehearsed. I couldn't look at her the same way. My eyes always drifted to that bag. I kept thinking of the envelopes of cash, the second phone, the apartment lease signed with another man's name. I didn't say a word. Instead, I started observing. Quietly, carefully, like a man playing a role he didn't believe in anymore. The first thing I noticed was her overtime. Serena had always claimed she worked late shifts at the logistics office, handling end-of-month paperwork. I decided to check. One Thursday, she told me she had to stay late again. I drove to her office and parked across the street. The lights were off. The parking lot empty. She wasn't there. I followed her car instead, keeping distance, headlights off. She didn't head downtown to the office. She drove across the city to a hotel I recognized instantly, the same one from the receipts. She parked, grabbed her bag, and disappeared inside. I sat in my car for nearly 2 hours, staring at the glowing windows, imagining what she was doing inside. When she finally came out, she wasn't alone. A tall man with sharp shoulders walked beside her. They moved casually, like they'd done this 100 times. He put his arm around her waist. She leaned into him. They didn't kiss, but they didn't need to. The way they walked said enough. I wanted to get out, confront them right there, scream in the middle of the parking lot. But something stopped me. Rage wasn't going to win. Proof would. The next day, when Serena left for work again, I decided to find that apartment. The lease papers had an address scribbled on them. It wasn't far from downtown, in a newer building with glass balconies. I waited outside, pretending to scroll my phone. The doorman barely glanced at me. Eventually, a man walked out of the lobby. Same man from the hotel. The one who had walked Serena to her car. Up close, he looked even more deliberate. Clean suit, expensive watch, sharp haircut. He carried himself with the kind of arrogance you couldn't miss. Demure. I felt like I was staring at the other half of Serena's life, the life I wasn't meant to know existed. He climbed into a sleek car, a brand that made mine look cheap. And in that moment, I understood. Serena wasn't juggling me and him because she was confused. She was building two separate realities. One safe and stable, with me. One flashy and indulgent, with him. That night, Serena came home cheerful. Too cheerful. She cooked dinner, asked about my day, talked about honeymoon destinations. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was still replaying her walking into that hotel. I couldn't sleep. I started digging deeper. Her laptop was password locked, but the second phone gave me more than I needed. Messages weren't just romantic, they were logistical. She scheduled meetings with Demir, arranged apartment deliveries, discussed deposits. He called her my future, and she responded with promises about leaving me when the timing was right. The words made my stomach turn. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. The following weekend, we had dinner with Serena's family. Her parents adored me, or at least, I thought they did. They always said I was steady, the kind of man Serena needed. But that night, something felt different. Her father kept asking vague questions about my job, as if testing whether I'd still be able to support her after marriage. Her mother made a comment about how some people need more than stability. Serena brushed it off with a laugh, but it struck me as odd. Then came the slip. Her younger sister, Elvira, had a glass of wine too many. She leaned over the table, smirking, and said, "So, how's her other engagement going?" The room went silent. Serena's eyes widened, and she forced a laugh, waving it away like a joke. But I saw the panic flash across her face. Her parents didn't react with confusion. They reacted with irritation, as if Elvira had said something impolite rather than untrue. That's when it clicked. They knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Her family wasn't blind to her double life. They were complicit, or at least willing to ignore it if it meant Serena landed someone wealthy. On the drive home, Serena was unusually quiet. I wanted to bring it up, but I held back. Every instinct screamed at me to lash out, to demand answers, to end it right there. But a colder voice inside me said wait. She didn't know how much I had seen, and as long as she didn't know, I still had the advantage. The very next day, I confirmed everything. Serena told me she was spending the evening with her coworker, helping prepare a presentation. I didn't even pretend to believe it anymore. I drove straight to the apartment building and waited. 2 hours later, her car pulled up. She got out, smoothed her dress, and walked inside like she belonged there. 15 minutes later, the balcony light flicked on. Through the glass, I saw her silhouette. And his. They moved together like a couple who had long since forgotten to hide. I clenched the steering wheel so tight my hands hurt. My fiancée was upstairs, living another life, while downstairs her stable man waited in the car, the ring she had begged me for still in his glove box. By the time she came home that night, she was glowing. She kissed me like nothing had happened. She asked if I'd eaten. She laughed at a joke on TV. And I just watched, memorizing every expression, every casual lie, every act of love that was nothing but theater. The final proof came in an envelope of her mail. Serena asked me to grab her bag while she showered. I slipped open a smaller compartment and found a folded invitation. Not for our wedding, but for a gala next month. The invite listed Demir's name, and hers right next to it, as his guest. That was the moment everything locked into place. Serena wasn't just lying to me. She was planning her exit. She wanted the security of my savings, the stability of my reputation, while she positioned herself next to someone with more wealth, more status. She thought she could keep both lives spinning until she chose which one benefited her more. But she underestimated me. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't even confront her. Instead, I smiled, folded the invitation back into her bag, and kissed her goodnight. Because now I knew exactly what kind of person I was dealing with. And if she wanted to play games, I could play better. Living with Serena after I uncovered the truth felt like walking through a stage play. Every laugh, every touch, every conversation was rehearsed. But I wasn't her audience anymore. I was her director, waiting for the right cue to end the show. She thought she was in control, balancing two lives, one with me and one with Demir. She didn't know I had already decided exactly where and when those lives would collide. The opportunity came in the form of our engagement party. Serena wanted it big. She insisted we rent out a hall, invite friends, colleagues, and both families. She spent hours choosing decorations and table arrangements, parading ideas past me as if my opinion mattered. I nodded, agreed, let her believe she was steering the ship. Inside, I was already building something else. I had photos of the hotel receipts, screenshots from the second phone, a copy of the apartment lease, even the gala invitation with Demir's name next to hers. Enough proof to bury her in front of everyone who thought they knew her. The trick wasn't collecting the evidence. It was timing the reveal. One wrong move, and she'd spin it. Cry. Play the victim. Her family would back her. Demir might walk away unscathed. But if I waited until she was standing in front of everyone, basking in attention, lifting a glass to toast our future, then I could strike so that no explanation could save her. I spent the weeks leading up to the party pretending. I kissed her, laughed at her jokes, let her lean on me when she pretended to be stressed about wedding planning. Inside, I rehearsed how the night would unfold. When the evening came, the hall was glowing with chandeliers, tables draped in white, a band setting up in the corner, a photographer snapping pictures of smiling guests. Serena swept in like a queen, wearing a dress she had bragged about for weeks. She clutched my arm, smiling so wide you'd think she believed her own lies. I carried a small box with me. Inside were copies of everything, each set sealed in an envelope. And when the time came, those envelopes would sit in front of every guest. The night started like any other celebration. Her parents greeted everyone with practiced warmth. Her sister Elvira hugged me too tightly, eyes glassy from wine already. Friends circled Serena, complimenting her dress, her ring, her perfect life. And Demir? I hadn't expected him to show. But halfway through the evening, he walked in. He didn't try to hide it. He arrived confidently, wearing a tailored suit, his eyes sweeping the room until they found Serena. She froze for a fraction of a second, then masked it with a smile. She excused herself from a conversation and hurried to him, whispering sharp words I couldn't hear. He gestured with annoyance, then followed her to a corner. It was almost poetic. The very man she thought she could juggle standing in the same room as the man she promised to marry. I felt my chest tighten with anticipation. The fuse was lit. When dinner was served, I excused myself briefly, slipping into the back hall where the envelopes waited. Each one had the same contents: photocopies of hotel bills, messages from the second phone, the lease, the gala invitation. Nothing doctored, nothing exaggerated, just the raw truth. I placed one envelope on each table, tucked neatly between the menus. By the time I returned, Serena was standing at the center, holding her glass high. "I just want to say," she began, her voice sweet and commanding, "how grateful I am to be surrounded by people who love us. Tonight is not just about a future, but about family, loyalty, and the kind of love that endures." Her words cut off, because at that exact moment, the first guest opened an envelope. I watched their expression morph from confusion to shock. They whispered to the person beside them, who opened theirs. A ripple spread across the hall as envelopes unfolded. Papers passed from hand to hand. Murmurs grew louder. Faces turned toward Serena. One guest actually stood and demanded, "What is this?" Serena blinked, frozen, clutching her glass like it was her anchor. Then she looked at me. My expression gave her nothing. Demir, standing near the back, had already opened one. His jaw clenched, his eyes burning as he read the messages with his name splashed across them. He dropped the papers onto the floor. The hall went quiet, all attention snapping to him as he stormed forward. "You didn't tell me you were engaged," he spat, loud enough for everyone to hear. Gasps erupted. Serena's mask slipped. She stammered, her eyes darting between him and me. Her hand trembled, spilling champagne onto her dress. "It's not. This isn't." But there was no room left to twist. Proof sat in every hand. Proof she couldn't laugh away or cry through. Her parents looked mortified. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father's face drained of color. Elvira smirked behind her wine glass, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Demir turned to me. "Did you know?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence told him enough. The photographer, sensing chaos, kept snapping pictures. Flashes lit the scene as Serena's perfect facade crumbled under the weight of her lies. She tried to lunge toward me, pleading, but Demir blocked her. "You played me," he hissed. "You played us both." His voice cracked with rage. "Do you know what this makes me look like?" Guests began standing, chairs scraping against the floor, some leaving, others staying to watch the spectacle. It was like a fire had broken out, but no one wanted to leave without seeing who burned. Serena's father finally barked, "Is this true?" His voice shook, more with humiliation than concern. Serena burst into tears, collapsing to her knees, begging, "It's not what it looks like, I swear. Please, listen to me. He twisted this. He's trying to ruin me." But no one moved to comfort her, not even her mother. I stepped forward, calm, collected, and placed my glass down. "Everything you've read is real. I didn't change a word. I didn't invent anything. If you doubt it, check the hotels. Ask the landlord of the apartment. Call the numbers on the phone she hides in her bag. The truth doesn't need me to explain it." And then I walked out. Behind me, the noise swelled. Her sobs, Demir's shouting, her parents' anger, the gasps of guests. The perfect evening Serena had built for herself turned to ash in a matter of minutes. When I stepped into the cold night air, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Not free, not yet, but close. When I stepped out of that hall and into the night, I thought I'd left the chaos behind me. But the fallout from Serena's double life didn't stay confined to that evening. It spread outward like ripples in dark water, touching everyone she'd pulled into her games. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Some messages came from mutual friends, others from Serena herself. Dozens of missed calls, texts full of desperate explanations, angry accusations, sudden shifts between begging me to talk and swearing she could fix this. I didn't answer. Every word felt like another script she was rehearsing, hoping someone would still buy the act. By noon, her family reached out. Her father left a curt voicemail. "We need to speak." Her mother sent a long, emotional message about misunderstandings and working through things privately. But I knew better. They weren't defending her out of love. They were scrambling to protect their image. A family that prided itself on respectability couldn't afford to have their daughter publicly exposed as a liar. I ignored them, too. What I didn't expect was Demir. He showed up at my apartment 2 days later, unannounced. I opened the door to find him standing there, suit rumpled, eyes bloodshot, fury radiating off him. For a second, I thought he might swing at me. But instead, he pushed past me, pacing like a caged animal. "You knew the whole time," he snapped. "You let me walk into that party blind." I leaned against the wall, watching him unravel. "You knew she was engaged. You just didn't want to believe it." His laugh was bitter. "She told me she was leaving you, that it was temporary, that she just needed stability until things with us were permanent." He dragged a hand over his face. "Do you have any idea what this makes me look like? My name's tied to her everywhere now. Everyone thinks I was in on it." He wasn't wrong. Word spread fast. The gala committee withdrew his invitation after whispers about the scandal reached them. A client reportedly pulled out of a deal, citing unprofessional associations. Serena had dragged him down with her. Maybe, I said quietly. That's karma. He stared at me, eyes narrowing, then stormed out. That was the last time I saw him. Serena, though, wasn't done. She showed up outside my building that weekend, mascara smeared, hair disheveled, clutching the same leather bag like it was her lifeline. She waited by my car, catching me as I came down. "Nikolai, please," she cried, blocking my path. "You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He doesn't matter. You're the one I love. You're the one I was going to marry." Her words were frantic, desperate, spilling out without pause. But behind her eyes, I saw it. Not love, not regret, but survival. She wasn't begging because she cared about me. She was begging because her safety net had snapped, and she needed someone to catch her before she hit the ground. I didn't answer. I walked past her, got into my car, and drove away as she pounded on the window. The collapse of her carefully curated life was quick. The wedding venue called within a week, demanding the remaining balance. Serena had insisted on signing the contract in both our names, but I had documented proof of her fraud. I sent the venue copies of the evidence, explaining she'd misled me. They turned their attention to her family for payment. Her parents, furious at the humiliation, refused to cover the costs. They cut her off financially, telling anyone who asked that they had no part in her behavior. Suddenly, the daughter they had flaunted as perfect became a liability they wanted to distance themselves from. Serena lost her apartment next. Demir had been footing part of the rent, but after the party, he vanished. Without his money, she couldn't keep up with the payments. The landlord posted an eviction notice within a month. Neighbors said she cried in the hallway as movers hauled her designer furniture away. Her job didn't survive either. Gossip traveled faster than she could outrun it. Co-workers whispered, clients looked at her differently, and soon her manager let her go. Officially, it was restructuring, but everyone knew the truth. No company wanted to deal with someone whose name had become synonymous with scandal. The last I heard, she moved back into her parents' house, though they barely acknowledged her. A woman who once strutted through hotel lobbies and galas now spent her days behind a checkout counter at a store on the edge of town. Her pride had shriveled, her mask shattered, her future reduced to the echoes of choices she couldn't take back. Meanwhile, my own life shifted, not instantly but steadily. At first, I carried the weight of what happened like a stone in my chest. Nights felt long, quiet, empty. I replayed every moment, wondering how I hadn't seen through her sooner. But then I remembered. She had been careful, calculated. She knew how to smile, how to laugh at the right moments, how to make lies sound like truths. Anyone could have fallen for it. My friends, the ones who had once joked about how perfect we looked, rallied around me. Some admitted they'd noticed her strange behavior, but hadn't wanted to interfere. Others said they were proud I had exposed her instead of becoming her next casualty. Slowly, I rebuilt my sense of self. The hardest part wasn't losing Serena. It was realizing I had loved someone who didn't exist. The woman I thought I was marrying wasn't real. She was a mask built to cover greed and ambition. Months later, I passed by a cafe near downtown. Through the window, I saw her. Serena, in a plain uniform, wiping tables, her once pristine hair tied back in a messy bun. She looked older, worn down, her movement slow. The bag was gone. No designer clothes, no glowing confidence. Just a shell of who she used to be. For a second, our eyes met. She froze, rag in hand, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something. But I didn't stop. I walked on, the glass between us like a wall I would never step through again. I don't know if she still tells herself stories, if she still dreams about the life she almost had. But I know one thing. The bag she told me not to touch turned out to be her undoing. It held the proof of every lie, the seeds of her own downfall. And when it spilled open, so did the life she thought she could keep hidden forever. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.